We are on the last chapter of The Land of Stories, written by Chris Coper. Yay! The last chapter is called A Fairy's Tale. If you remember, Alex and Connor were about to meet the fairy godmother in the clock tower. I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 23 because it's shocking. The fairy godmother turned to face the children. She was a beautiful older woman with kind eyes and a radiant smile. Her hair was light golden brown and worn up in a gorgeous hairdo. The twins froze. Grandma? Alex gasped. I'm so glad you're right, their grandmother said, and rushed over to hug the twins. She gave them the biggest and longest hug they have ever received from her. Your mother and I have been worried. The twins didn't hug her back. They couldn't. They could barely breathe. They were surprised and still standing because neither of them could feel their legs. How are you? Their grandmother asked. Are you hurt? Are you hungry? Do you need anything? Grandma? Alex said softly. Is it really you? It's me, sweetheart, she said. I'm really here. You're the fairy godmother? Connor asked. She smiled at them. I am, she said, with sadness in her voice. I'm so sorry. I've never meant for you to find out this way. The grandmother stopped speaking. Her gaze had landed on the object in Alex's hand. Good heavens! What on earth are you doing with your father's old journal? She asked. Alex and Connor felt like they swallowed their own hearts. This is Dad's journal? Alex asked with the big eyes. We've been following Dad's journal this whole time? I think I'm gonna faint, Alex said. Their grandmother pulled out a long crystal wand from inside her coat, and she waved it, and a sofa magically appeared in the clock tower. She took the twins by the hands and set them down on the sofas to let them catch their breaths. It took the twins by surprise. Even though she was a fairy godmother, Alex and Connor weren't expecting their grandmother to be capable of such magic. Grandmother took the journal from Alex, flipping through the pages, amazed how it had somehow found their way into their possession. Where did you get this? She asked. It was given to us by our friend Froggy, Alex said. We've been following it since we got here. We've been hunting down the items for the wishing spell, Connor said. The wishing spell? Their grandmother asked anxiously. No wonder it was impossible for you to find you. You and Dad are actually from here then? Alex asked. I wasn't making it up in my head? And Dad wrote the journal? Connor asked. His mind was still stuck on that subject. Yes, and yes, their grandmother said. It's all true. I gave this journal to him when he was a boy. I'm glad it was useful. The twins had gotten used to their heads spinning with questions, but now they were spinning out of control. They didn't know which question to ask first. So Dad wanted the wishing spell so we could travel to our world? Connor asked. He wrote the journal because he fell in love with a woman in our world? Alex said. Could it be? Your mother, yes, their grandmother said. Alex and Connor exchanged a look, each seeing how the other was processing the information. Neither was less shocked than the other. How long have you been a fairy godmother? Alex asked. Why didn't anybody tell us any of this? Connor asked. I know you probably have 100 questions, their grandmother said. But before you worry yourself too much, let me explain. Please, Connor said. Their grandmother took a deep breath. She didn't know where or how to start. We always planned on telling you when you were older, she said. Your father was counting down the days until he could bring you here and show you around. Unfortunately, he never got the chance to. After he passed away, you two were going through so much already, your mother and I didn't want to overwhelm you, so we decided to hold off. So Mom knows about this place? Alex asked. She's never been here, but she knows enough, their grandmother said. Your father and I, on the other hand, were both born and raised here in this world. Before your father was born, I was just a young fairy in training and accidentally discovered your world. So your cabin in the woods, your blue car, it was all just for show? Connor asked. Certainly not, grandmother said. I stay in the cabin during my travels. I love that blue car. I wish people in this world knew about automobiles. So, how did you end up in our world to begin with? Alex asked. It happened by total accident. she said. I recently just finished a tour of the kingdoms, traveling to those who needed a helping hand. I was anxious for more. I waved my wand around me. I closed my eyes and thought of all my heart. I wish I could go someplace where people need me the most, thinking I would just end up in a village in the northern kingdom. When I opened my eyes, I knew I wasn't in the kingdoms anymore. I kept it to myself for years before telling any of their fairies about it. It had a large group of children there who showed me around. I was fascinated by their world, and they were even more fascinated with the stories about mine. They didn't know anything about magic or fairies before I came along. Their world was so consumed with war and famine and disease. It was all they knew. They would sit for hours and hours and listen to my stories about the world I came from. It seemed to take them away from their troubles. I saw how the stories inspired them, how to give them hope, and how they give them courage and strength, and how they learned lessons about them. It made children without families learn to love and trust a little bit more than they had before. It put back the sparkle in the eyes of children who were ill and had their childhoods taken from them. I decided from then on I would do as much as possible as I could to make our stories, our history, known as possible. To date, I'm the only one who's had the gift to move between the worlds. I found it to be a great responsibility. I recruited Mother Goose and a few other fairies to go with me into your world and spread the stories of ours. We found the children who needed to hear them the most, the ones who were down on their luck and needed a little magic, and the term fairy tales were born. Your world was moving so fast and growing so large, we couldn't do it by ourselves anymore, so we asked the brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen and a few others to help us over the years. So there is a time difference, Alex said. Your world moves much faster than ours, Grandma said. I visited once a week, and every time I returned, it seemed to be decades and decades had gone by. That's why the stories have been in our world for so long, Connor said. Oh, no! Alex exclaimed. Mom, does that mean she's grown into an old woman while we've been here? No, their grandmother said. You see, children, there was a time difference. But then something truly magical happened that changed it all. What? Connor asked. You two were born, Grandma said with a smile. The twins looked at each other, amazed. Why are we so special? Connor asked. Because sometimes magic has a mind of its own, Grandmother said. Grandma looked down at her hands and her wedding ring. Your grandfather loved your world and traveled with me whenever I went. He was the love of my life, but he was unfortunately died shortly before your father was born. I raised your father here on my own, but continued to visit the other world from time to time, although it was painful, because it reminded me of your grandfather. Your father was always an adventurous boy from the early age. He was constantly running off, exploring different lands throughout the kingdoms. He was always very curious about the other world. I promised to take him one day when he was an adult. Many years later, he came with us to the children's hospital and to read stories to the sick and young children. Your mother had just started nursing there. I knew from the minute he laid eyes on her that his heart didn't belong to himself anymore. Naturally, I forbid him from staying or even coming back with the fairies and myself. It was selfish of me, but I was scared I would get lost in the time difference of the worlds and would live the rest of his life without me. I couldn't lose my son after losing your grandfather. But his love for your mother was too strong, and he found his own way back using the wishing spell. I had no choice but to give him my blessing and let him go. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do as a mother. However, as soon as you two were born, the most peculiar thing happened. Your world and this world slowly starting to move at the similar speeds. It's the greatest magic I've ever seen in my lifetime. Being your father's children means that you have a part of this world inside of you and always will and always have. You two were the first children born of both worlds, so you're the bridge that connects them. The twins were relieved to know that their mother would be the same age when they returned. You mean, Alex began to say, but she paused because it almost seemed too good to be true, that Connor and I are part fairy? I suppose if you put it that way, she said. Alex placed both of her hands on her heart and tears came to her eyes. Connor rolled his eyes and sighed. That's wonderful, Alex said. Ugh, great, Connor said sarcastically. The guys at school can never hear about this. How else do you think you set off my old storybook? Grandma said. Alex sat straight up in her seat. She remembered the night in bed when she was holding the land of stories, wishing with all of her heart to travel inside it. The first night she discovered it wasn't an average book. You mean I did that? Alex said. I made the land of stories bring us here? Yeah, Grandma said, with a proud smile on her face. Alex couldn't believe it. She was magic. She'd made it happen. It all made sense now, Alex said. In the castle, the evil queen was hiding and my tear activated the wishing spell. I saw my reflection in one of her magic mirrors. I had wings. I thought I was just seeing things. Evil queen? The grandmother said. It sounds like you two have had more of an adventure than I thought. You could say that again, Connor said. I look forward to hearing all about it, their grandmother said. Your mother has been worried sick. She had to give your school every excuse known to man why you two haven't been gone. I think it's time I took you home. Huh? Home? She was going to take them home. Never had a wonderful sounded a wonderful world never had a word sounded so beautiful. Can you do that? Connor said. You'd be amazed at the things your grandmother can do. She laughed, but her look faded as sadly as she looked down at the journal had belonged to her late son. Amazing, isn't it? Even in death, your father managed to show you around this place. It had always been his dream. Alex and Connor had always thought their father was amazing. Until now, they never knew how amazing he was. The twins and their grandmother left the clock tower, caught Sir Lambton leaning on the door, closely listening to their conversation. He escorted them down to the stairs of the ballroom. I knew your father, Lambton whispered into the twins' ears. We grew up together. I knew you must have been his children the very second I saw you. That's why I put the glass slipper in your bag. The twins couldn't even acknowledge it with a smile. Their minds were already overloaded. They walked into the ballroom and everyone stood at the sight of the fairy godmother. Everyone, please have a seat. I've come to bless the baby princess with a gift, and then I'm going to take my grandchildren home, she said, and put her arms around Connor and Alex. Grandchildren? Cinderella asked. I had no idea. Why, that practically makes you family, she said, smiling at the twins. Did you hear that, Alex? Connor said, leaning close to his sister. Cinderella herself said we're practically family. I know, Alex said. I'm trying not to cry. The fairy godmother took out the newborn princess into her arms. The twins were excited to see their grandmother in action. She is beautiful, dear, she said to Cinderella. My gift to the princess will be bravery. May need it in the years to come. The fairy godmother kissed the newborn's cheek. Her lips left a sparkly mark on the infant's face, and it slowly faded away as the gift was absorbed. Before I go, I have one more gift to give, the fairy godmother said. She took out her long crystal wand. Will the gentleman known as Froggy please come to the front of the room? Froggy, who had been partially hiding behind the charming kings, cautiously met the fairy godmother in the middle of the room. Thank you so much for looking after my grandchildren, the twins' grandmother said. I will never be able to thank you enough, but for now, I like to take the curse that was put on you. Froggy's mouth opened extra wide. He kept looking back and forth between the twins and the fairy godmother. I... He started but couldn't finish. The fairy godmother waved her wand, and the curse cast upon him blew away like dandelion seeds in the wind. Froggy wasn't Froggy anymore. He was a man. He was a very attractive man, too, with dark hair and eyes that illuminated the entire room. It was shocking for the twins to see him as anything else. Charlie? King Chance said. Is that you? The charming brothers all leaned closer. They stared at him as if they were looking at a ghost. Hello, brothers, Froggy said. It's been a long time. The charming's amazement eventually wore off, and it turned into a celebration. They ran over to their long-lost brother and vigorously embraced him. The room erupted with joy and long overdue reunion. Red Riding Hood was quietly blushing to herself. She was looking at Prince Charlie in a completely different way. He wasn't exactly the friendly frog, the man who saved her from the collapsing castle anymore. He was husband material. "We thought you were dead," Chandler said, rubbing his brother's head. "We searched every kingdom for you," Chase said, patting him on the back. "Now you know why you couldn't find me," Charlie said, and shrugged. "Why didn't you tell us?" Chance said. "I was ashamed," Charlie said. "I don't know any better. I thought I had to hide. Please forgive me." The twins couldn't believe it. Now they knew why he was acting so strange when they arrived. "So you're a prince?" Alex asked with a gigantic smile on her face. "You forgot to mention that part." "My apologies," Charlie said. "I could have sworn I mentioned it over lily pad tea." They laughed together. Charlie ran over to the twins and hugged them almost as tightly as his brothers had just hugged him. "Thank you." "Oh, thank you," Charlie said, "for inspiring me to come out of my hole in the ground." "Thank you," Alex said. "I'm still calling you Froggy," Connor said. The fairy godmother waved her crystal wand one last time, and a door appeared in the middle of the ballroom. She walked over to the twins and placed a hand on both their shoulders. "It is time," she said. The twins recognized the door immediately. It was the front door of their rental house. They had never been so happy to see it. The light was shining through it. They knew their mother was waiting for them on the other side. The kings and queens and fairies in the room looked at Alex and Connor sweetly. Although most of them had their predicaments with the twins, they were sad to see them go. "Say goodbye," Grandmother told the twins. Connor couldn't wait any longer. He ran straight to the door. "See ya," Connor yelled at everyone and left the room without even looking back. He ran into the door and disappeared. Home at last. Alex looked up at her grandmother. "Will we ever come back?" she asked, hoping with all of her heart the answer she wanted to hear. "Someday," her grandmother said. Alex took a step toward the men and the women she had grown up reading about their entire life. She could have sworn that she had a dream just this once. She had been meaning to say something and decided that this might be her last chance to say it. "I know this might not make any sense, but thank you for always being there for me," Alex said. "You're the best friends I've ever had." They didn't quite understand what she meant, but they were all touched by her words. "Come along, dear," their grandmother said, and escorted her through the door. Alex wiped away tears that had been brought on by saying farewell. She couldn't help but smile as she walked through the door with her grandmother because she knew in her heart it really wasn't goodbye. And that is the end of The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell. There's other books.